Hello.
Hi.
We are excited. This is going to be our first video that we're doing for this group, Step Out and Step In. And so we want to start with a series we're titling the B series. That's B-E. Not the letter, not the insect. Are bees an insect? I should know that because I went over that with our children
I think they are
not
insects.
so long ago, but
They
okay.
are insects.
Formally, they're insects. Let's agree on that. Okay, we've got that down. Which has nothing really to do with what we're talking about today. But that's fine. So we are talking about being, and it just so happens that the word of the day today, while we're recording this anyway, Michael had the word of the day as be. This terminology has become really foundational, actually, for us individually and as through Focus and Vision Ministries, and as a ministry we do on a day-to-day basis. And so we really felt like this was an important place to start, because this is what all the rest of the things, even after this particular series is over,
right?
Where things kind of stem from. And so this will be that video you can go back to and reference and remind yourself of what that's all about. So when we say be, we're talking about who we are being, and that really starts with who our being is modeled after.
Right. What is the orientation or the
origin?
The origin. That's where I'm at. The origin of who we are.
Yeah.
I think that, as Katie said, this is one of those videos to come back to from time to time, because it's foundational. It's going to serve as the pillars of what we build other conversations on, and the importance of knowing who you are, right? Being is critical to your life and what you do, what you say, how you interact with people, because the reality of all of that is it is a reflection of who you claim to be.
Yeah. So we go to Genesis, and it says that we were created as human beings, right? Not human doings. And so this is kind of our starting point, is we were created as a being, not as a doing. And so what I thought of today, even, I mean, I've had this thought before, but just a reminder of how God says and calls himself I am,
right?
Which is about a being,
right?
It's not like his primary claim is not I did this, I do this, and those are important and those are true, but those are all important and true because of who he is.
Right.
And that goes for Jesus as well. Jesus does the same thing, and modeling that, I am who you say I am kind of thing. It's an I am statement, that we get from him. So that component is just really, really important, that we start with the being.
Right, with the being. I think one of the scriptures that I point us to, the scripture stories for the word of the day, is be, and that is with the conversation Jesus had with Nicodemus.
Yeah.
I really think that's a pivotal point within our understanding and acknowledgement of who we are. Because we're talking about a high priest. So the high priest is supposed to know some things. And he approaches Jesus at night. And so I'm not going to preach to you, but I will give you a context for this, because it's important. And I don't think Nicodemus wanted to be seen because of the depth of his interest and the weight that he carried in the community, as well as the severity of the question. Because it's a serious question that Nicodemus asks Jesus.
Yeah.
And that is how, and it's funny, I don't even think Nicodemus knew what he was asking.
No.
Because he says,
we usually don't.
Right, he says, what must I do to be saved? What must I do to be?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Because it's reversed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Jesus looks at him and he simply says, you must be born again. You must be born again. Yeah. And so the challenge that we are all faced with every day is being
Mm-hmm.
Who are we? And if we have been born again, then the evidence will show up in how we be.
Yeah, we often, and this is kind of, again, it's kind of a little bit of a teaser because we're just talking foundationally. We're going to delve more into this and what this looks like and what this means for us and how this plays out. But the notion for today is just that we don't start with the doing. We start with the being, but the doing comes out of our being.
Right.
And we often miss that. And when you miss that and try to reverse it, that leads to all sort of detriments because that's not how God intended it to be.
That's right.
It was not meant to be done in that order, because when Jesus was here, he was who he was created to be and knew who he was and knew who the Father was. And that's how the doing came out the way it did.
That's right.
Was according to who he was and knowing who the Father was. So that's really foundational. So we're going to talk more about that piece about knowing God, to know ourselves,
right,
next week, and just delve more into that. But just want to encourage people you make a really good point, because nowadays things are very hurried and we end up being dictated by our doing and by our circumstances around us, rather than dictating our lives by our being. And it's just a very easy thing to get pulled into, and then at the end of the day, you've lived your life for what?
Right.
Other people telling you where to go and what to do and how to do it. And
I would even challenge, as we wrap this up, I want to challenge everyone until the next video, and that is, instead of asking people, how are you doing? Ask them, how are you? Just how are you? And ask that with the intention of being available to hear how they are, because that is significant to how we are in relationship and community with one another, when we care more about how we be and less about how we do.
How can you practice that this week? Your being instead of your doing. We'd love to hear from you guys, what that looks like and what the outcome of is for you guys in that this week. So blessings to you all. We will see you
next
talk
week.
to you soon.
All right. Bye-bye.